So, the purpose of the crankshaft dynamic dampers is to reduce engine vibration. The purpose of the crankshaft dynamic damper is to reduce engine vibration. What type of connecting rods are commonly found in radial engines? Master articulating rods. Master or articulated rod assemblies. Master and articulating rod assemblies. What is the purpose of the crankshaft dynamic damper? The crankshaft dynamic damper, what is the purpose of it? To reduce engine vibration. What are the different types of piston rings? Compression, oil control, and oil scraper. Compression, oil control, and oil scraper. What type of connected rod are commonly found in radial engines? Master or articulated rod assemblies? Yes, correct. Master and articulated rod assemblies. What is the purpose for dynamic dampers? Well, I believe dynamic dampers reduce the engine vibration. Correct. What type of connecting rods are commonly found in radial engines? Connecting rods. What type of connecting rods are usually found? I think the master and articulated rod assemblies. Yes, master and articulated rod assemblies. What are the different types of piston rings? Different type of piston rings. Compression, oil control, and oil scraper. Compression, oil control, and oil scraper. What is the purpose of an oil control ring? What is the purpose of oil control rings? Oil control rings regulate the thickness of the oil film on the cylinder wall. Oil control regulate the thickness of the oil film on the cylinder wall. Wow. What is the purpose of valve overlap? Valve overlap. Well, valve overlap permits better volumetric efficiency and lowers the cylinder operating temperatures. You said what? Well, I believe the valve overlap permits better volumetric efficiency and lowers the cylinder operating temperature. Well, what is the running valve clearance on engines equipped with hydraulic valve lifters? Oh, the running valve clearance on engines equipped with hydraulic valve lifters are 0. You said the running valve clearance on engines equipped with hydraulic valve lifters is 0? Yes. The running valve clearance on engines operating equipped with valve lifters is 0. Lack of combustion in that cylinder. When troubleshooting a running engine, malfunction, what does the coal cylinder indicate? When troubleshooting a running engine, malfunction, what does the coal cylinder indicate? Well, a coal cylinder indicates lack of combustion in that cylinder. What? Bro, a coal cylinder indicates lack of combustion in that cylinder. So when I'm troubleshooting an engine and it has a malfunction, and I feels a cold cylinder. I feel a cold cylinder. The others are hot, huh? But this one is cold for some reason. You're telling me that there's lack of combustion in that cylinder? Yeah, that means there's lack of combustion in that particular cylinder. Okay, how about the type of bearings? What type of bearings are generally used in reciprocating engine? Well, we got the plain bearing, we got the ball bearing, and we got the roller bearing. So there are three bearings that we use in all recips, and those are plain, ball, or roller bearings. Let's hop back to the top, see where we at. What's the purpose of the crankshaft dynamic dampers? Let me see, the crankshaft dynamic dampers. Well, I think they reduce engine vibration. Yes, you are correct. They reduce engine vibration. What type of connecting rod are commonly found in radial engines? Type of connecting rods. Well, we got the master rod. We got the articulated rod assemblies. What are the different type of piston rings? Well, we got compression. We got oil control. We got oil scraper. How about this? What's the purpose of an oil control ring? Well, the oil control rings regulates the thickness of the oil film on cylinder walls. Alright, let's move on. Name at least one part of an inspection that should be made after a propeller strike. Not a sudden stoppage, just a propeller strike. Inspect the engine mounts. That's what I would do. That could be one part of an inspection that should be made. But hey, you got the crankcase you could inspect. You can inspect the nose section for damages, or inspect the oil or oil screen filters for metal particles. Inspect the oil and oil screens or filters for metal particles. Inspect the propeller drive shaft or crankshaft for misalignment. You could do that also. Inspect propeller drive shaft, crankshaft for misalignment. Well, here they're saying, how's the cylinder barrel inspected for out of roundness? First of all, cylinder barrels. Out of roundness. Well, the cylinder bore gauge, telescopic gauge, and micrometer, or an inside micrometer, can be used to measure the top of the cylinder and also at the skirt. Two readings should be taken 90 degrees to each other. What should be done to repair a loose stud in the engine crankcase? Well, first of all, you want to remove the stud. Inspect the hole. Okay? It may be necessary to use a suitable oversized stud. To remove the loose stud, inspect the hole for size and condition of the thread. It may be necessary to use a suitable oversized stud. One of the indication that a primer is leaking is when open during engine operation. The engine will not lose idle properly. The engine will not idle properly. Let's say that again. What is the indication that a primer is leaking or is open during engine operation? The engine will not idle properly. Okay, where's my pen? Wow, what a beautiful pen. I love these pens. Yeah. What are some indication of induction system leakage? Low power and uneven running. Man, I love when I reach the point in studying where I actually want to study this. You know what I'm saying? My son is still sleeping. It's 8 o'clock. We went to bed like 2 o'clock last night. I woke up because, as you can see or hear, I'm coughing. I'm sick. But I have this test in 3 weeks, oral and practical, and I know I can pass it. I know I can pass it and go get this job. Bank account low. Credit cards, you know what I'm saying? Credit cards, run up. I'm trying to get this, not really the money, but I'm trying to get a job, a career finally. That I think that I'll be proud of myself. Thank God that I can do actually. So what is the purpose of the power check in a reciprocating engine? To determine satisfactory performance. Power check of the recip engine is checked to determine that the engine is developing the correct static RPM. Okay, before attempting to start a radial engine that has been shut down for more than 30 minutes, what about it? Check this out. What should we do? Well, let's read the explanation. I like reading the explanation. There are some cylinders below the center line of the radial engine, and it is possible for oil to drain down past the piston rings into these lower cylinders while the engine is not operating. When radial engine has been shut down for more than half or so, it should be checked for a liquid lock. Liquid lock, by pulling the propeller through the direction of normal rotation by hand for at least 2 complete revolutions of the crankshaft. If the oil is collected in any of the lower cylinders, the spark plugs must be removed from these cylinders and all the oil drained out. Wow, if the oil has collected in any of the lower cylinders, spark plug must be removed from these cylinders and all the oil drained out. Oh my God. So turn the propeller by hand 3 or 4 revolutions in the opposite direction, in the normal direction. Turn the propeller by hand 3 or 4 revolutions in the normal direction of rotation to check for liquid lock. So which of the following is characteristic of thrust bearing used in most radial engine? Which of the following is a characteristic of thrust bearing used in most radial engine? Thrust bearing used in most radial engine. Deep groove ball were used in the thrust bearing in most radial engine. This type of bearing is the best of those listed for reducing friction while carrying both thrust and radial loads. If the intake valve is open too early in the cycle of operation, of the four-stroke cycle engine, it may be result in backfiring if the intake valve is open too early. The intake valve opens when the piston is moving upwards at the end of the exhaust stroke. Opening this point allows a lower pressure. Opening at this point allows the low pressure caused by inertia of exiting exhaust gases to assist in starting the fuel or air mixture flowing in the cylinder. If the intake valve opens too early, some of the burning exhaust gases could flow into the intake manifold and ignite the mixture. This would cause a backfiring in the induction system, which condition would be least likely to cause a failed engine bearing? Which condition would be least likely to be caused by failed engine bearing? Low oil temperatures. Well, all the alternatives except low oil temperatures would likely to be caused by failed or failing engine bearings in the reciprocating engine. Low oil temperatures would be least likely of these alternatives. Which of the condition would be least likely caused by failed or failing engine bearing? So when you say least likely, low oil temperatures. So an excessive oil consumption will cause a failing engine bearing, and a high oil temperature will cause a failed engine bearing. But low oil temperatures is least likely to cause failed engine bearing. Direct mechanical push-pull carburetor heat control linkage should normally be adjusted so that the stop located on the diverter valve will be contacted. Direct mechanical push-pull carburetor heat control linkages should normally be adjusted so that stop located on the diverter valve will be contacted. So, when rigging any engine control in the aircraft, the stop on the component being actuated must be contacted before the stop in the cockpit. The control linkage has enough spring back in both directions that after the stop on the diverter valve is contacted, the control can be moved in both directions until it contacts the stop in the cockpit. When the control is released, it will spring back few degrees. Direct mechanical push-pull carburetor heat control linkages should normally be adjusted so that the stop located on the diverter will be contacted before the stop at the control lever is reached in both hot and cold position. Okay? This one is gonna be good. I can tell. This one is gonna be good. But let's take a minute to read a couple OMPs. What is an indication that the primer is leaking or open during engine operation. The engine will not idle properly. What are some indications of induction system leakage? Low power and uneven running. What are some indications of induction system leakage? Low power and uneven running. What may be the result of incorrect installation of piston rings? Excessive oil consumption. What may be the result of incorrect installation of piston rings? Excessive oil consumption. What procedure should be followed when valve blow-bys is indicated by a hissing sound on the reciprocating engine when pulling the propeller through? Perform a cylinder compression test to identify faulty cylinders. Perform a cylinder compression test to identify faulty cylinders. Wow. What procedure should be followed when valve blow-by is indicated? Perform compression test to identify faulty cylinders. When you hear a hissing sound, that's air leakage. The actual power delivered to the propeller of an aircraft engine is called brake horsepower. The volume of a cylinder equals 70 cubic inches. 70 cubic inches. When the piston is at bottom center, the piston is at top of the cylinder, the volume equals 10 cubic inches. What is the compression ratio for that? 7:1. The compression ratio of the reciprocating engine is the ratio of the volume of cylinder with piston at bottom of its stroke to the volume of the cylinder with the piston at the top of its stroke. If the cylinder has a volume of 70 cubic inches with the piston at the bottom of its stroke and a 10 cubic inches with the piston at the top of its stroke, compression ratio is 7:1. Which of the following engine servicing operation generally requires engine pre-oiling prior to starting the engine? Which of the following engine servicing operation generally requires engine pre-oiling prior to starting the engine? Engine oil and filter change, engine installation. Which of the following engine servicing operation generally requires engine pre-oiling prior to starting the engine? Engine installation. By use of a differential pressure compression tester, it is determined that cylinder 3 of 9-cylinder radial engine will not hold pressure after the crankshaft has been rotated 260 degrees from top dead center. How can this indication usually be interpreted? It's normal for a cylinder not to hold air pressure when the piston is near the bottom of its power stroke and the exhaust valve is open. So which of the following engine service and operation generally requires engine pre-oiling prior to starting the engine? Engine installation. A characteristic of dynafocal engine mounts as applied to an aircraft reciprocating engine is that the characteristics of dynafocal engine mounts is applied to an aircraft reciprocating engine is that the shock mounts point towards the engine's center of gravity. If the engine with a stroke of 6 engine is operated at 2000 RPM, the piston movement within the cylinder will be so the piston in a reciprocating engine is not moving when it is at top and bottom of its stroke. As it leaves the top dead center, it accelerates from zero velocity to a maximum velocity, which is reached when it is 90 degrees beyond top dead center. It then decelerates to zero velocity at bottom dead center. I don't know what they talking about there. If an engine with a stroke of 6 inches is operated at 2000 RPM, okay? 2000, the piston movement within the cylinder will be the engine with a stroke of 6. You feel me? The piston in the reciprocating engine is not moving when it's at top and bottom of its stroke. As it leaves the top dead center, it accelerates from zero velocity to a maximum velocity, which is reached when it is 90 degrees beyond top center. It then decelerates to zero velocity at bottom dead center. So at maximum velocity of 90 degrees after top dead center. We have to come back to that one because it's kind of confusing. If the crankshaft run out reading in the radial, if the crankshaft run out readings on the radial indicator are plus 0.002 inches and minus, boom, I'm going to say it's 0.005. Condition that can occur in the radial engines but is unlikely to occur in the horizontal opposed engine is hydraulic lock. So radial and inverted engines have some cylinder below the crankcase. When the engine is idle, oil is leaked from the crankcase past the piston ring and fill in the combustion chamber. This condition is called a hydraulic lock. So an increase in manifold pressure with a constant RPM will cause the bearing nose and engine to. An increase in manifold pressure with a constant RPM will cause the bearing nose to increase. The cylinder pressure applied to the crankshaft through the connecting rod bearings is determined by the compression ratio of the engine and the manifold pressure. The manifold pressure of the given RPM is increased, the bearing nose imposed on the crankshaft will increase. What is an indication that the primer leaking or is open during an operation? What is an indication that the primer is leaking or is open during engine op? Engine will not idle properly. What are some indications of induction system leakage? Low power and uneven running. What may be the result of incorrect installation of piston rings, excessive oil consumption. What procedure should be followed when valve blow-by is indicated by a hissing sound on a reciprocating engine when pulling the propeller through? Perform a cylinder compression test to identify the faulty cylinders. What factor about the condition of an engine can be learned by studying the result of compression tests? The results of compression tests determine if the valve piston rings and pistons is adequately sealing. What factor about condition of an engine can be learned? What factors about condition of an engine can be learned by studying the results of a compression test? The result of a compression test determine if the valve piston rings and piston are adequately sealing. Okay. How are piston gaps installed relative to each other on a piston and why? Compression ring gaps should be installed in staggered positions around the piston in order to prevent excessive blow-by. Compression ring gaps should be installed in staggered position around the piston in order to prevent excessive blow-by. What is meant when it is said that an engine part is within serviceable limits? A part that is within serviceable limits will not likely wear to the point of causing engine failure within the next time between overhaul. A part that is in serviceable limits will not likely wear to the point of causing engine failure within the next time between overhauls. Time before overhaul interval. Okay, I got one for you. 2 more oral and practicals, and we'll go back over it, and then boom. What's that smell? I think the neighbors are chopping it up. Get it? Chopping it up. It's crazy, man. When you live in these houses, you smell everything the neighbor is doing. I can tell when you're taking a dump, smoking. I can tell when they wake up and yawn. So when an engine is rebuilt by the manufacturer, how is its operating history affected? When an engine is rebuilt by the manufacturer, how is its operating history affected? A rebuilt engine is considered to have no previous operating history and can therefore be issued a zero-time record. An engine is rebuilt by the manufacturer. How is its operating history affected? A rebuilt engine is considered to have no previous operating history, can therefore be issued zero-time record. What is used in the aircraft engine to help prevent valve surge or float from occurring? 2 or more springs in each valve. 2 or more springs on each valve. I wonder if I will build or design my own engine in the future. I wonder how I get to that level, to be able to, know how to design my own engine. Like, do I start here or what book do I buy? You know, I want to be thinking on like the Wright brothers level, man. I want their spirit to incorporate in me, man. Like, I want to know these guys, be like these guys. You know what I'm saying? I want to be on the Wright brothers level. How do I get to that point? Who do I talk to? Is there a book I should read? I might watch a YouTube video. That sounds a little bit more, you know, yeah. So an increase in the manifold pressure with a constant RPM will cause the bearing load in engines to an increase in manifold pressure with a constant RPM will cause the bearing load in an engine to increase. So the cylinder pressure applied to a crankshaft through the connecting rod bearing is determined by compression ratio of the engine and manifold pressure. The manifold pressure for a given RPM is increased. The bearing load imposed on the crankshaft will increase. Valve overlap is defined as a number of degrees. Valve overlap is defined as the number of degrees of crankshaft travel. 8. During which both valves are off their seats. So valve overlap is a number of degrees of crankshaft rotation that both the intake and exhaust valve are off their seats at the end of the exhaust stroke and the beginning of the intake stroke. Valve overlap allows a great charge of fuel-air mixture to be inducted into the cylinder. Valve overlap allows a greater charge of fuel or air mixture to be inducted into the cylinder. Okay? During which both valves are off their seats. So valve overlap is defined as the number of degrees of crankshaft travel during which both valves are off their seats. We're going to wrap it up right here. Continue later. We're not going to miss out on anything, I promise. You're not going to miss out on anything. I am here for you. You know what I'm saying? We're going to do this step by step, one by one, day by day. I'm dead ass.